The quickest way to destroy your own life is to miscalculate a man who refuses to fight back. Most tyrants don't fall because they meet a bigger giant. They fall because they mistake a sleeping lion for a helpless victim. On a hot afternoon in Benin City, Corporal Ochuko looked at a young man in cheap rubber sandals and saw exactly that. A helpless victim. But he was wrong. Before the day ended, he would humiliate the man's elderly mother, beat him until his shirt turned red with blood, and laugh as though nothing could ever touch him. What Ochuko didn't know was that in that single moment of judgment, he had already made the worst mistake of his life. Stay with me, because when the boy finally returned to that checkpoint, Benin City turned into a war zone. This is the day the highway landlord was brought down. Corporal Ochuko did not just operate a checkpoint, he ran a criminal enterprise, and the road was his personal estate. To the commercial drivers entering Benin City, he wasn't a law enforcement officer. He was the highway landlord, and rent was collected through intimidation. Ochuko's method was a perfectly choreographed theater of cruelty. He had an uncanny ability to smell vulnerability from a distance, and he used mini-scenes of public humiliation to keep the entire road terrified. One afternoon, a struggling tricycle driver pulls over, his hands shaking as he hands over his documents. Everything is complete. Ochuko doesn't care. He glances into the driver's pocket and spots a crumpled bundle of cash. "Officer, please," the driver pleads, his voice breaking. "It's only my child's school fees I have left. I haven't even made feeding money today." Ochuko scoffs, snatches the money directly from the man's hand, and drops it into his pocket without looking. "If you like, allow your child to stay at home. Move this rubbish before I lock you up." Then there were the days he targeted motorcyclists. A commercial motorcyclist forgets his passenger's extra helmet. Instead of issuing a warning or a legal fine, Ochuko walks up with a long, rusted dagger. Without a single word, he drives the blade deep into the rider's rear tire. The tire deflates into the dirt. Ochuko walks away laughing, leaving the stranded rider to push his ruined bike for miles in the blazing sun. The terror was systemic. Miles down the road, private car owners and truck drivers would desperately flash their headlights at oncoming traffic, a universal warning signal in the language of the tarmac. Ochuko is ahead. Tighten your belt. He was completely drunk on absolute power, pocketing crumpled Naira notes, believing that nobody, absolutely nobody, could ever cross his line. It was a humid afternoon. A red tricycle approached the checkpoint. Inside the cramped back seat sat an elderly, humble woman wearing a faded traditional wrapper. And beside her was her son. The young man looked entirely ordinary. Wearing an oversized plain white t-shirt, dusty rubber slippers, and holding a small black plastic bag filled with local market groceries. To Ochuko's predatory eyes, they looked like the ultimate easy target. Poor. Voiceless. Powerless. Ochuko slammed his wooden baton against the metal frame of the tricycle, forcing it to a screeching halt. "All of you, fall out. Empty the tricycle," he barked. The elderly woman trembled as she struggled to step out. As she lifted her heavy market bag, it accidentally brushed against Ochuko's pristine black boot. That was all his ego needed. "Are you blind, you useless old woman?" Ochuko roared, violently kicking her market bag out of her hands. The bag burst open, scattering her groceries into the dirt. "Look at your wretched life. You are bringing your village bad luck to my checkpoint." The public humiliation was devastating. Passers-by averted their eyes, too afraid to look. The elderly woman dropped to her knees, tears streaming down her wrinkled face as she desperately tried to gather her ruined food from the dust. Then, the air went completely still. The son stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not swear. He simply stepped between the towering corporal and his weeping mother, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. Then he looked Ochuko dead in the eye, with a calm, freezing composure. "Officer, please," the young man said, his voice low, steady, disciplined. "Speak to my mother with respect. She has done nothing to harm you." Ochuko gasped in disbelief. A common boy in rubber sandals was questioning his authority. Who is this bloody civilian talking to? Consumed by rage, Ochuko grabbed a thick wooden checkpoint stick from the roadside. Whack! The stick struck the young man across the shoulders. The young man didn't run. He didn't strike back. He simply absorbed the blow, using his own body to shield his mother from the assault. Whack! Whack! The heavy wood cracked against his skin, tearing the white t-shirt, leaving deep, bloody lacerations across his back. Throughout the entire beating, the young man kept his eyes locked on Ochuko. Not with fear, but with a terrifying, silent mental recording of the officer's face. Ochuko spat on the ground, threw their bleeding bodies away from the road, and laughed hysterically. "Get out of my sight. Go and report to Abuja. Go and call your governor. Nobody can touch Ochuko." The young man quietly helped his crying mother to her feet, picked up his torn bag, and walked into the distance without uttering a single threat. He had intentionally traveled light, hoping to pass through his homeland unnoticed, enduring the blows in absolute silence. But Corporal Ochuko had no idea whose wrath he had just invited. The next morning, the sun rose over the Benin checkpoint, but the atmosphere felt entirely different. Ochuko arrived in a celebratory mood, loudly boasting to his junior colleagues about how he had disciplined one stubborn civilian boy and his mother the previous evening. But his laughter was cut short. A white police patrol truck screeches to a halt at the checkpoint. The door flies open, and the officer in charge, OC, Ochuko's direct boss, steps out. The OC isn't wearing his usual arrogant smirk. He is sweating profusely under the morning shade, his uniform soaked in anxiety, his face completely pale. He ignores Ochuko's salute. He grabs Ochuko violently by the tactical vest and pulls him into the shadows of the concrete barrier. "Ochuko," the OC whispers hoarsely, his voice trembling with an aggressive panic. "Who did you molest on this road yesterday afternoon? Tell me the truth before it is too late." Ochuko stammers, his arrogance faltering. "Nobody, sir. Just the usual lawbreakers, stubborn motorists, and one boy in a tricycle." The OC's eyes widen in absolute horror. "You fool! You brainless idiot!" A direct, high-priority wireless signal just bypassed the state command straight from the highest offices in Abuja. The power brokers at the very top are in an uproar, and heads are about to roll. The Inspector General of Police is personally demanding your complete service file within the hour. "Ochuko, who did you touch?" For the first time in his entire career, the blood completely drains from Ochuko's face. The heavy boots he stood in suddenly felt like blocks of cement. The phone calls he usually made to his high-ranking protectors went straight to voicemail. His network had vanished. The predator was slowly realizing that he was sitting in the center of an invisible trap, and the walls were closing in. By noon, the checkpoint had gone silent. No shouting. No insults. No movement that felt confident. Even the air felt heavier than normal. The junior officers kept glancing at each other, no longer confident, no longer loud. Just waiting. Then, the ground began to shake. A low rumble at first. Then it grew. Fast. Heavy. Unstoppable. From the horizon, a thunderous roar of heavy engines tore through the heat wave. 5 dark green, heavily armored, military tactical trucks charged down the highway. They did not announce themselves. They arrived like impact. No sirens. No warning. No hesitation. Just movement. They arrived with the terrifying, synchronized speed of an elite unit executing an ambush. In seconds, the formation snapped shut. Front, sealed. Sides, locked. Rear, cut off. The entire checkpoint was erased and replaced with a cage, perfectly boxing in the police roadblock. Inside that cage, a massive, rugged, military green combat SUV rolled forward and stopped. Still running. Still alive. The glass was heavily tinted like midnight. It purred like a cornered beast, sitting perfectly guarded in the middle of the perimeter. Instantly, the doors of the tactical trucks flew open. Armed soldiers in full combat gear poured out. Weapons drawn and raised. The metallic clack-clack of assault rifles chambering rounds echoed across the tarmac. They formed an impenetrable ring of steel, cutting off every single escape route. Ochuko's junior colleagues didn't even think about fighting. They couldn't even imagine it. They dropped their wooden batons into the dirt, their hands flying straight into the air in absolute surrender. Ochuko felt it before he understood it. He froze. His chest tightened. His legs weakened. A wave of pure survival panic overwhelmed him. His hand moved toward his weapon. But his hand betrayed him. It wouldn't dare. It wouldn't even try. He was completely paralyzed. Every soldier now had eyes on him. Every rifle steady. Every breath controlled. Every eye on the highway locked onto the rugged green SUV in the center. The heavy passenger door swung open. Boots hit the red Benin dust first. Black. Polished. Pristine. Then the uniform followed. Full military camouflage, pressed and immaculate. Then the green beret, sitting perfectly on his head. Then the silver insignia of a captain, catching the sun like a warning. Silence dropped completely. Ochuko looked with total bewilderment. The SUV door opened fully. The captain stepped out and looked up. For a moment, no one moved. Ochuko stared. His breath caught in his throat. His chest went hollow, and his knees gave out slightly, sliding him down. Because he knew that face. The same man. The same eyes. Everything else had changed. No longer human, in his mind. No longer a bloody civilian. No weakness. No hesitation. Only authority. Only consequence. Standing before him, backed by an entire combat platoon, was the exact same young man from the day before. The exact same calm, unblinking eyes. The exact same unbreakable jawline. Except this time, he wasn't wearing a torn white t-shirt or cheap rubber sandals. He was carrying the full, unbridled wrath of the Nigerian armed forces. Corporal Ochuko finally understood. He had not been waiting for backup. He had been waiting for judgment. The highway landlord has finally met the man he thought was just another civilian. And in a few moments, the judgment will begin. But first, if you're enjoying this story, you're actually watching a special event. This story, alongside the nylon bag, the day an untouchable police officer was destroyed, is part of our explosive Corporal Ochuko series, with even more chapters still to come. While you wait for the reckoning on the Benin highway, make sure to check out some of our other hit cinematic thrillers right here on Naratox Stories. The Architect's Grave, the gift that became his death trap. The Ghost Credit, the bank made a $120,000 mistake, then they came for his life. The Golden Bait, the 150 million naira bank mistake. Fake Fasting, the 21 days fast that went horribly wrong. If you love high-stakes stories filled with suspense, consequences, and unforgettable twists, subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a chapter. Because what happens next will destroy everything Corporal Ochuko spent years building. And the Benin highway is about to witness the fall of its landlord. The judgment had arrived. A long silence followed. The captain did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. His words cut through the heat like steel. Yesterday, you didn't see people, he said. You saw targets. A pause. You didn't know who I was. Another pause. You didn't need to. His hand moved. That was all. The soldiers stepped in. Fast. Controlled. Ochuko was disarmed instantly. His police jacket was torn off his body. His beret ripped away and thrown into the dust. Every symbol of authority, gone in seconds. An orderly stepped forward. A thick tactical web belt unfolded in his hands. The sound of it alone changed the air. And then, right there, on the open tarmac, the discipline began. The crack of the belt echoed across the highway. Once. Then again. Rhythmic. Heavy. Unforgiving. The great Corporal Ochuko broke. Not silently. Not cleanly. Loudly. He collapsed, rolling in the exact same red mud where he had scattered an old woman's livelihood the day before, begging for a mercy he had never shown to a single soul. The same ground he used as a stage for humiliation now became his mirror. Then, suddenly, a second sound entered the road. Sirens. Close. Fast. 2 police patrol trucks arrived from the opposite direction. Reinforcements. But the moment they saw the formation, they slowed. Too late. A single sharp hand signal from the captain cut through the air. Instantly, the soldiers shifted. Rifles raised. Not fired. Just aimed. Final. The police trucks came to a hard stop. Doors opened slowly. Officers stepped out. But there was no pride in them anymore. Only hesitation. The captain gave a cold command. Disarm them. Line them up. 2 soldiers moved. Fast. Efficient. Weapons were stripped in seconds. No resistance. No argument. The entire reinforcement unit was forced into the dust, kneeling beside Ochuko. Now they were all the same height. All the same position. All stripped of authority. Now the entire checkpoint belonged to one silence. Not police silence. Military silence. A silence that does not ask. It decides. That was when the crowd began to form. First drivers. Then passengers. Then traders from the roadside. Then strangers who had been watching from a distance. No one spoke loudly. But everyone saw everything. A woman covered her mouth. A truck driver shook his head slowly. A young boy stood frozen like he had just learned what power really meant. Whispers spread like wildfire. That is the same officer. The officer that collect money like rent. See him. Ochuko heard none of it clearly. But he felt every word anyway. Then, a new presence entered the scene. The rear door of the SUV opened again. A woman stepped out. Slow. Calm. Dignified. Wearing simple but clean traditional attire. She didn't rush. She didn't speak. She just walked forward. And stood beside her son. Not behind him. Beside him. Ochuko's eyes shifted toward her slowly and froze. And then the ultimate psychological devastation hit him. His breath broke. Because he recognized the woman. The woman from yesterday. The one whose food he kicked into the dust. The one who cried on the roadside while he laughed. His breath broke completely. Reality finally caught up with him. She didn't look at him with anger. She didn't look at him at all like something small or something alive beneath her. She looked at him like something finished. Something that had already been judged. And in that moment, everything inside Ochuko collapsed. Not because of the soldiers. Not because of the weapons. But because of what he finally understood. His entire life, his career, and his fearsome reputation had been completely destroyed. He didn't just humiliate a civilian. He humiliated and caused a humble mother to cry. The story did not end on the Benin City highway. The dust eventually settled. The crowd dispersed. The soldiers departed. And the law began its own work. In Nigeria, power may delay consequences, but it cannot cancel them. By nightfall, the drama shifted behind closed doors. The military command handed the disciplined officers over to state headquarters under heavy guard. What followed was swift, relentless, unforgiving. Investigators moved through years of complaints, years of extortion, years of abuse, years of silence that was finally breaking. And this time, there was nowhere left to hide. The evidence was overwhelming. The witnesses were many. The excuses were finished. In a cold, silent room, the final hammer dropped. Corporal Ochuko was dishonorably dismissed from the Nigerian police force. His rank was gone. His uniform was gone. His pension was gone. His authority was gone. And the reputation he spent years building collapsed into the same dust he once forced others to kneel in. The names he used to boast about disappeared. The powerful connections went silent. Phone calls stopped. Promises broke. Doors closed. For the first time in his life, he stood alone. But true justice does not move in one direction. At the military high command, a separate review had already begun. Because defending family and breaking protocol are not the same thing. The captain had protected his mother. But he had also deployed active duty soldiers, military vehicles, and operational force for a personal matter. The armed forces do not ignore a rogue operation, no matter the intention. Following a strict internal review, the decision was made. The captain was officially demoted in rank. A consequence. A price. A mark that would remain. The gates of the military barracks opened under the calm Benin sun. The captain stepped out. His uniform carried less authority now. His shoulders bore fewer insignias. But his stride did not break. He walked forward, steady, composed, unshaken. Across the road, he saw her. His mother. Calm. Safe. Finally free. For the first time in a long time, she could walk through Benin City without fear. No trembling. No hiding. No humiliation. No looking over her shoulder. Just life, restored. The captain looked at her, and smiled. Not proudly. Not triumphantly. But peacefully. He had lost a stripe on his shoulder. But he had protected the honor of the woman who gave him life. And to him, that trade was worth everything. Corporal Ochuko learned too late that a uniform is a shield, not a weapon. It is meant to protect the weak, not to oppress them. He looked at faded clothes, cheap slippers, a tired woman carrying food just to survive. And he saw weakness. What he failed to see was that quiet people are often not weak. They are waiting. Power can make a man feel untouchable for a season. But consequences are patient. They wait in silence. They watch in the dark. And when the time comes, they collect. Remember this. Power without respect is nothing but a target on your back. Now let me ask you. If you were on that Benin highway that day, and you saw the fearsome highway landlord finally brought to his knees in the red mud, would you have cheered for his downfall? Or felt a quiet warning about the nature of power? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Did the captain make the right choice trading his military rank to protect his mother's honor? Let us know. Subscribe to Naratox Stories, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next chapter of the Corporal Ochuko series. Also remember to check our other stories in the description and pinned comment.